many that, politically speaking, let me start with you, Wakili.
Yes.
Consensus, legally speaking, in the political arena.
Yes.
What do you understand by that?
Consensus.
Before we get into the juicy part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Consensus is a convergence of interest, similar interest. Yeah, where people is basically an agreement, where people with the diverse they have a few compromises.
Yes.
They may disregard some interest, adopt new interest, come up with a common, mutual, compromised position, whereby now they agree. This is now the common position which we will take.
Yes. And
we see when we talk in political consensus, these are different people with different interests, and everybody is pushing for their interest. So now for them to reach a consensus, they must sit down and agree. Will this new interest be a common interest for all of us? And you see in Kenya right now, especially in this time of nominations,
yes,
several parties are encouraging consensus. You have seen all the parties.
Yeah.
UDA, Wiper, ODM, and now that we have this provision for a coalition party.
Yes.
That is.
And it seems it's working for them.
Yeah, I think so. But on the other hand, it is not working. Yeah, because you see, some of these people undertaking the consensus, some of them are biased towards some candidates, for example. Yeah, you have seen ODM trying to encourage the same. You saw what happened in Homa Bay.
Yes.
And if you feel that your interest will not be taken into consideration, you opt out to either another friendly party or independent. Yeah. Yeah. With this idea of coalition party, and you know, Victor, under Section 10(2) of the Political Parties Amendment Act, several parties can come together and form a coalition party. And this coalition party actually has also the mandate to also field candidates in every position. Exactly. Yes. Leave alone having each party member having the right to also have their own candidates. And it is a notion which is not very common to many political players. And you see now for these people to come together and agree, okay, in a seat, for example, in Nairobi County, the seat of governor, and every party is fielding a candidate. And you saw what Kenya Kwanza did over the weekend, where now they are telling Sakaja, they're telling Margaret Wanjiru, please step down for Sakaja. And you saw them doing that. You see for Azimio, for example, we have Tim Wanyonyi in ODM, we have Ngatia in Jubilee. Yes. We have other players. We saw Wiper had given their ticket to a person named called Mulwa, and the ticket was withdrawn. Yes. We don't know whether there was a negotiation between Wiper and Jubilee, because we saw Wiper members going to Kangemi, where Ngatia was launching his political bid. You saw Wiper members going there, and we saw Professor Kaloki, whom many people are saying is coming to be Ngatia's deputy. All this consensus is people coming together and trying to negotiate.
But is it
their interest
really working to this end? Perhaps let me ask Doctor, your opening remarks, please.
Yes, I think consensus is become the main word in town, and that's what every political party is driving towards. And I think consensus, negotiated democracy, as we say, negotiated democracy is not bad, and I think the main aim is to avoid conflict. Yes. To avoid conflict, whether political, whatever conflicts that could be there, in order to arrive at an amicable solution, whatever case it is. But Victor, I think we are also stretching, or political parties and political leaders are stretching this consensus too far. Because in a democracy, the expectation is that the people make decisions. They choose candidates for themselves. So when you seek consensus in a nomination process, in a political party. There's nothing wrong with that because it's still within the law. But then look at it from the perspective of democratic practice. If we are going to negotiate everything, where are the people in the scheme of things?
Yes.
We leave the people behind. In fact, the greatest fear of most of the contestants as we speak today is after you have agreed, what do you go back to tell your people? Because you have a following. How are you going to face your people?
Yes.
Because it is a negotiation between you and the other contestants. Yeah? But people could have a different opinion. So why are we running away from subjecting people to party primaries, as it is known across the world?
Yeah.
United States, developed democracy, they do their primaries, they vote, but now we're actually turning around like voting, put voting aside, just leave it aside, let us do consensus. Everyone is running towards consensus. It's cheap. They say you don't spend a lot of money. The candidates don't spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
There is also pork. You get something. You can be given a job and all that. But I am looking at it from a democratic practice.
Right.
Where does it leave the people? Because politicians say, I have been asked, I've been pressured.
Yes.
By my people to run.
Right.
So
and then all of a sudden
you are alone in a room.
Yes.
And you're going out there, outside. And then your people are not even outside the room, but they are at their homes. They only get the news that now this is the new framework. I think it's an assault if we do it the way we're doing it in our country.
Yes.
It's an assault on democracy. People are left out. Ultimately, you take these people back.
How far should the political parties stretch?
You know, there is no restriction. They could negotiate on critical areas, but they should not, in my view, resort to consensus. All of a sudden, nobody is going to hold elections.
Yes.
We are going to consensus. Are we going to do the same thing at the national level?
Right.
Why are we going to vote? Why can't we also at the national level agree it's Raila to be president and we forget about everything else?
Yes.
You know, or it's Ruto to be president and we forget everything else. I mean, I look at it from that perspective. We need not entirely now depend on consensus and leave the people, because democracy is about people's rule. And our constitution clearly says that sovereignty resides with the people. And nominations, Victor, nominations determine the outcome of an election, because you determine the candidates, and those are the candidates that the election would actually ultimately produce.
But sometimes as it goes, Wakili, the way he's putting it, you know, at the end of the day, voters have a voice.
Yes.
An instance, Homa Bay County, what happened after, the consensus between Honorable Gladys Wanga and Oyugi Magwanga, and now we saw politicians who were actually running for that particular seat. They had a photo session, and then we had Dr. Evans Kidero, who said that, I was not invited to that event, and therefore I'm not okay with the fact that there's a consensus which was reached upon. There's a threat in terms of losing numbers or strong voting blocks in a particular region with this consensus thing. What do you make of that?
I agree with that.
Yes.
And I also agree with what Dr. said on the importance of consensus. Let us remember that consensus was a technique which was adopted mostly when it came to making of constitutions. Because in constitution making, it is people's interest. A larger, if maybe a community comes with their own agenda and they say this is what we want for our community, and the consensus worked very well. Even when we were talking of BBI, for example, there were these people coming from this certain region, or maybe a political party coming and saying this is our possession, and now that in that way consensus was working. But when it comes to political consensus, remember this is an individual's interest, not a community interest. And I agree with the Daktari on the issue of if, for example, you call somebody and you tell them kindly leave your position and support, like you saw what UDA has been doing. You saw recently even in Kiambu yesterday.
Yes.
They are telling the speaker, please, Bwana Speaker, leave your position, support this other person, and we will give you this and this. And that person will listen, say, it's okay, since I believe Kenya Kwanza will carry the day, let me leave my position, I can become a CAS or a CS. That is individual interest. What about now the community interest? If the community is not happy, maybe they were fronting this person, they had their belief in him, and they are not happy, believe you me, there will be a political fallout. Look at what is happening to DP, for example. You saw Muturi went to have an agreement with the
actually he
Kenya.
Dropped his presidential bid.
Exactly.
Right.
And now the elders who even endorsed him in Muranga the other time, they have split diverse views.
Yes.
Some are saying we blessed him, like the chairperson is saying we blessed him. Others, like Professor Kagwanja, are saying no, we did not bless him. The Nyeri Senator aspirant, for example, who is the Deputy Secretary General, he is saying no, we have written to the register of political parties and will demand that agreement is not deposited.
Yes.
Because you see now it becomes a question of whether was there a political consensus between DP as a party and Kenya Kwanza, or it was Muturi as a person.
Other stakeholders, because when you talk of the elders, those are also stakeholders, and electors, they're stakeholders.
Exactly.
When a consensus is reached, then at what point should a consensus be? Because we all see boardroom affairs. Then later on, press called, an announcement is made. I don't know how it happens.
A consensus should be an outcome of a well-thought, structured negotiation.
Yes.
Between these two parties, or two or more parties who have come together. They want to reach a consensus. And the terms of that particular agreement should be terms which have been mutually agreed upon by all those parties who have participated in that particular consensus.
Right.
You see what is happening to Azimio, for example, and you saw these other parties who are calling themselves the fourth leg. They are calling themselves Mwanzo Mpya as well. And they are saying, even I saw the deputy leader of DAP, Ayub Safula, who was in ANC, saying, we want a copy of that agreement which we signed in KICC. So the question is, for there to be a genuine consensus, parties to that consensus must be aware of the terms. And it is so open and obvious that these affiliated parties to Azimio, many of them are not aware of the terms. And that's why you saw Raila, after now these parties complained, and some of them, like Manlio Chapchapa of Mutua, they returned to they said they have other options. He quickly called them, and he said, okay, I have heard you. I'll actually adopt some of you in the National Council of Azimio. And they adopted 11 of them. There are, of course, others who have not been adopted in the National Council. So I think for there to be a genuine consensus, there must be an open terms, and the parties to that particular agreement must be honest with each other. And you have seen some people are saying, oh, Raila is not honest. Others are saying, no, he's very honest. Because in a consensus, all the parties must be honest to each other, because they are representing their people. So if they go there and say, our voice has not been heard, and that's why I think Raila was properly advised by making sure that he calls these people, because people like Alfred Mutua are saying, after Wiper Party leader came on board, we have been sidelined, exactly. And that's why you saw even Mutua issuing another demand and saying, I want to become a running mate. The question is, and according to the Political Parties Amendment Act, parties must have submitted, the coalition parties must have submitted their agreement to the Register of Political Parties by the 9th of April, which was 2 days ago.
Yes, we are on 10th, so, actually today's 11th.
Yes, because that is 3 months to the election. If that has not been submitted, so that is 4 months to the election. Failure to submit that agreement, it means, because you saw after Azimio One Kenya coalition was signed, I think changing the name, that was submitted.
Exactly.
So whatever will be discussed, which is now being discussed now after 9th of April, is null and void. It can't be enforced anywhere. Yeah. So and that way, between now and I don't know, this 9th of May, when now the deadline for submission of party of tickets, or whether independent
after the nominations.
Yes. Between now and the 9th of May, there will be a lot of political fallout here, because the people will say, we, for sure, whatever we agree verbally now, there's no way to enforce it. Yeah. So if no party had ensured that their terms or their issues are captured in the coalition agreement, if that had not been done by the end of April, then there'll be no other recourse. But you see, there was the other discussion of coalition parties and the issue of Azimio, One Kenya, and Kenya Kwanza, and you saw the DP saying we'll vie as a UDA candidate. Yes, not Kenya Kwanza candidate. Because clearly, and I think they're also alive to the fact that the timelines have lapsed. Yeah. And they don't want to lock, they are very smart. They don't want to lock out any other party from Kenya Kwanza. Yes. Because you see, for Azimio, and I think they submitted their agreement to the registrar, new party coming will come under which platform? Yes. The coalition agreement has already been submitted. All right. Yes.
Okay, allow me to take a break. And at this particular point, it's quite difficult being Raila Odinga and Deputy President. Everybody's pointing their fingers at them. Okay, let me take a break, and when we come back, I'll come back with Dr. Bosire, so that today we want to understand this issue of consensus. All right? Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Have Wakili here, Katisya, and Dr. Bosire. Gentlemen, we're talking about consensus now, and let's now get to understand how, Dr. the whole issue of consensus will cast some sense of doubt among the political party players.
Victor, the main problem that we have in our country's politics, in fact, one could say, is mistrust or lack of trust. Total lack of trust, where agreements are trashed by those who have brokered them. We saw in 2002 there was the coalition that took power under Kibaki after an MOU. The MOU was trashed, and it's like there were no consequences. Of course, there are consequences in subsequent years, especially in 2007 election, because that actually created what we saw in 2007. This mistrust is still with our politicians, and that actually will cause a fallout after the election. So in the pre-election period, I see a fallout as well, because after they have now agreed on the candidates who they're going to support, when they hit the ground, each of them has their supporters. How do you bring those supporters together?
And the demands as well.
And the demands of each side. Yeah. We can be in a boardroom between us, the three of us here, and agree on something. But when you go out there, is it acceptable to the people? Also, after the elections, people must have been promised, we shall nominate you, we shall give you a position. Yeah. When this coalition loses, what happens? Or we can say everyone has lost. Again, even if the coalition won, the interest keeps on shifting. More players are coming in, more interests have come into
Depending on the prevailing circumstances,
and some people are left out, which again causes a fallout after the elections are over. In fact, sometimes I see that the greatest loser is the people, because the people could have had initially support for a particular political party. Like now we're having coalitions. When you say, for example, Wiper do not field a candidate here, and Wiper has its own members there who felt strongly that actually they have a candidate, a strong candidate. What happens after that? The party's aspirations and membership aspirations are actually dampened just right away. And that actually, for me, is an assault on democracy, on our democracy as a people in this country. We have seen also inconsistencies among these leaders, which again breeds this mistrust. When some were arguing, I would say, were arguing earlier that the decision to pick a candidate is not a boardroom affair. People cannot sit do an interview for somebody in an office and then say to us that now this is the presidential candidate. Let the people decide. Where are those, you know, where are those principles of letting people decide? We suddenly forgot about that. The same people who are making those, who are shouting really with the top of their voices are actually cheering as we speak. They're the ones who are chairing this boardroom event of seeking consensus among within the boardrooms among contestants. You know, where is Wanjiku? Where is Bosire? Where is Katisya?
Where is Wanjiku actually?
Where are they?
Then should it be that, but
and then you say
they should go to the grassroots. For example, if they want a consensus in Turkana County, for example, let all the candidates go to Turkana and have public participation.
You see, that is the bottom line. The bottom line. How do we arrive at this? Because my interest and your interest, where are people in the scheme of things? For me, that is a great question in democratic practice. Where are the people in the scheme of things? We have also relied on science. The parties are now saying we rely on science. We do opinion polls, objective opinion polls, and after that we can use the results and say if Bosire is the strongest. You guys, you can see Bosire has 45%, Katisya has 32%, and Victor has 20%. Why can't we cede the ground for Bosire to proceed so that we can secure the seat? Yes, science actually is important. We use science and technology in so many aspects of development, of decision making. Yes, it can be used. But ultimately, it's the people to make the decision. In fact, if we're in the same party, of course, we can see it's meaningless to go to elections, primaries. But if there are contentions, then primaries are always the best. We go down for universal suffrage. In fact, for me, that is, all these others, yes, could be legal, they will be constitutional, but as a democracy, I think the best could be...
Because when you talk of democracy, when after all this is done, Wakili, you realize that people say that, apana, sisi hatujui hiyo maneno. You know, that person, kwa ground things are completely different. Do Kenyans really understand the whole options we have in picking candidate? Universal suffrage, we go the consensus way, for example, what you're talking about right now. But do Kenyans have that real understanding of what consensus should be, or they still feel like consensus is only meant for the party officials and the party leaders to come and agree? But electorate, we still feel like we don't understand what this is all about, the civic education aspect.
Yes. I think I agree with you, Victor, that many Kenyans and the party members for this matter don't understand this whole idea of consensus, because in my opinion, it is an informal way of arriving at a party's candidate for a particular seat. Because under the Political Parties Act, there are only two ways of getting a party candidate. Either the nominations, where we have now party members voting in candidates, or party delegates. Like now in this issue of consensus, I would actually advise many parties to avoid fallout, and for the people to feel that they have been, their views have been heard and respected. The parties should encourage now the delegate way of now choosing a party candidate. Like now in the issue of Omabe, for example, there were so many candidates who wanted to contest in the ODM primaries for governor. What happened? The leaders were called in a meeting by the party leader, and they were told Gladys, all of them now have to agree that Gladys Wanga is the party candidate. Others like now Kidero, and that's why they were saying, no, our people, Kidero was saying, I've received a lot of pressure from my people, people of Omabe. So these, even though we have to also understand that everyone cannot agree on a certain decision, and the party is actually allowed by law to come up with their own frameworks of choosing their candidates. Look at the issue of Kisumu, for example. The former MP for Kisumu Central, Dr. Obura, is saying, you know, I was prepared to face off with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, But now you can see ODM leaders saying, you know, conducting a primary in Kisumu is a waste of resources.
Yeah.
We see for sure, we know that yes, and Nyanya was given a direct ticket. Yeah, so I think as much as the parties are allowed to encourage consensus, I think to avoid now the aspect of the party feeling, no, the party is being dictatorial, I think they should also allow the people, yeah, to choose their leader, because let's agree that in many regions, yeah, where these senior leaders come from,
yes,
their parties determine who wins that particular seat. We know for sure in Nyanza, whoever takes the ticket of ODM will have a higher chance of winning, even though there have been situations where independent candidates and people in other affiliate parties have also been winning.
Even Migori County,
yes,
went to PDP.
Nyanza,
exactly.
You know, Kisii also Nyanza also includes Kisii.
Yes.
Yeah, Kisii ODM never got a single MP in 2017.
Yes.
Not a single MP.
And that was because of it was a protest vote somehow.
More or less the same thing.
Yes.
Imposition of candidates.
And
that is a big threat. What I wanted to ask you, the biggest threat out of all these consensus things. And I hope politicians have learned their lesson from 2017, 2013, the chaotic, the men in black thing in Kasarani, and now the history is just about to repeat itself.
Yes.
Right? The threat?
The threat is these parties will have the risk of losing seats which they would have won if they pick the right candidate.
Yes.
Like, for example, look at what happened to Wiper in Ukambani. We know Wiper is the dominant party in Ukambani. But Wiper was not able to produce the governor of Kitui and the governor of Machakos in 2017.
Yes.
They learned their lesson. The primaries which happened in 2017 in Kitui, for example, they were contested between the then incumbent governor, Malombe, and the then Senator Musila. Now we are having a similar situation still in Ukambani. And some people are saying, we know for sure, like in Kitui, some people are saying, let's give Malombe a ticket, we know for sure he will win. And the way
called for a direct ticket.
Yes, and the way the was saying, opinion polls have been conducted by some of these parties.
And I'm winning.
And they say, according to this opinion poll, so-and-so is winning. Why can't we give them a direct ticket? At that point, you see, the party, because the party's interest is to win these seats. So the party must come up with a good framework of ensuring that there's no fallout. Because if somebody knows for sure, even if we go for this nomination, I know I will be denied this ticket, somebody will quickly go independent. And some people, as they go for these nominations, they're having a hidden card, independent card.
It's known, actually.
Yes, it is known. Yes. Yeah, so I think, and I agree with Daktari that the problem with Kenyan politics is that agreements are not kept. And we were discussing with Daktari when we went on break, and we observed that it is only Azimio One Kenya which has submitted their coalition agreement with the regional political parties.
Right.
What about the other coalitions?
Actually, even saying that even in Parliament, the Kenya Kwanza is not even recognized in Parliament because it doesn't have, it's not yet registered.
Yes.
All the documents to the register of political parties. But then, the threat, Daktari, because when you talk of Kisii is part of Nyanza province, so to speak. But when you look at the only member of Parliament, the only member was only Governor Ongwae. And that was it.
That was it. Reason was people felt that they were wrapped in the wrong way by the party at that time, because actually not ODM alone, but most parties did not. Actually, there was no internal democracy, particularly in relation to nominations.
Yes.
In fact, we had that problem. I worked with political parties at that time, and I know. And you see the same thing. Political party leaders, as they are doing this now, they are looking for loyalists. They are looking for loyalists, most entirely, first and foremost.
Yes.
They are looking for people who will be loyal to them. You understand what happened with Jubilee? Yeah, people were, and others were silenced. They were told you cannot stand. And we can see the same thing playing now. 2017, what we are seeing playing, particularly in some regions like in the central, some politicians influenced the nominations to have loyalists on their side. The same game is playing now.
Yes.
That we must secure tickets for certain people, for loyalists. Kiambu negotiations that are going on. I guess ultimately they're going to come up with how do we ensure maybe Babayao should come back or something like that. The former formations are coming back. So that is a major upset to democracy in our country. In Kisi, that is what happened. People just voted for individuals. They went,
much as they voted for Raila Odinga, but they did not vote for individual
parties.
Yes.
Parties actually, and again, Victor,
it was under NASA then.
Yes,
right.
And again, Victor, the problem then, when you look at the entire scenario, is that we're weakening political parties, and we're also weakening our democracy, because democracy should grow. The tenets of democracy should grow. If people are the center of democratic practice, it means that political parties should actually always involve the people.
Yes.
A good practice should be there. How are the primaries organized? How are we developing structures? In fact, I could say we are postponing a very important activity that would have strengthened our political parties. When shall we develop mechanisms for party internal democracy, including capacity, developing capacity to be able to run our own elections, primaries? The amendment, the Amendment Act, Political Parties Amendment Act, actually brought the issue, or strengthened the idea that members of political parties nominate those candidates who represent political parties in various positions. That in itself is going the right way, is something good to do. Then political parties should develop mechanisms. Sometimes I see it's like, logistics, costs, and all these things.
And loyalty.
The loyalty, actually loyalty then takes over. It's easier. In fact, for politicians, it's easier to negotiate these things than to subject people to the ballot.
Do Wananchi understand the term loyalty? They do.
They don't understand loyalty. Even if you told them, this candidate, of course they understand when they say they gave that one because as a friend of
but still
of the governor, the friend of the and ultimately they are compelled in any way to walk into the polling station and vote for these people. But I think we must demonstrate that actually democracy works in our country, and demonstrate commitment to grow our democracy by ensuring that internal party democracy works. And one of them is to have free and fair elections, which now will trickle down or will trickle up, whichever way we all move up, into the national politics, that when we have national elections, again, we entrust the people to make a decision. We stop interfering with the processes to win, and allow the people to make a decision, rather than to think the winner-take-all system, or I must win mentality in most of our politicians, which have plunged our country into chaos in the past.
Wakili, you know, what's the whole essence of having consensus then? Because with respect to different political parties, different regions, and ODM actually said that there's that issue of zoning, all right, which again is zoning is coming. We also have the issue of consensus, and Raila says that there's some sense of revolt amid that claim that there's some issue of zoning which is also coming up. When you have got zoning and consensus taking place at this crucial moment, you could imagine the number of voters will be locked out. We saw some chaos in Mombasa who said that, you know, some polling stations were moved from point A and moved to point B. Because in this particular region, we don't have enough kits, we don't have enough resources, and we have a very small number of members who are supposed to be voting, so they move it to a different region. But the question is now, when you have zoning and consensus, the issue of fallout is looming, and it's a big threat. And do you really think that the political party leaders are aware of that?
Yes, the political party leaders are fully aware of this looming fallout.
But they're still going for it anyway.
Yeah, because there are several factors which are considered by parties when they are giving tickets. And let me start with your question which you asked about whether the Wananchi know the meaning of consensus and party loyalty. You know, party loyalty to many people is an assumption or the perception that so and so as already is a member of is in the kitchen cabinet of this party,
yes,
and already according to us he has already gotten the ticket. Whoever goes, yes, whoever goes against him or her will just be wasting their time. And you have seen many parties, Wiper, ODM, Jubilee, giving so many direct nominations. You have seen in some places like a big county like Makueni, and we know Wiper is a dominant party. People fear to go against the Senator Mutula Jr., for example, yeah, and he was given a direct ticket, yeah, in a place where I'm sure many people would have wanted to participate in that particular nomination, but they know, hey, this person has been very loyal to the party. So the candidates will fear. Maybe the wananchi on the ground have their own person, but you see the party, since now the other opponents are fearing that this particular one will be given the ticket,
yes,
they run away.
Right.
Yeah. So that is the issue which now affects many aspirants in very many positions. But now coming to the issue of zoning and issue of consensus, and you have seen the Azimio One Kenya coalition. I think there was a meeting after the fourth leg threatened to move out, because this issue of zoning was not clearly spelled out.
Yeah.
It is now after that meeting between Raila and these leaders of this fourth leg, after that meeting, they issued another statement.
Yes.
And they said the party will not zone any particular region. Every party has the right to field a candidate. They also raised the issue of a running mate, for example, and they said no, all these affiliated parties will participate in agreeing on a running mate.
Yes.
Now,
because Alfred Mutua said that they were not consulted, they just learned it on the media.
Exactly.
Yes.
And now failure to ensure that there is proper consensus,
right, is
where now you see many parties threatening to leave. You saw Alfred Mutua threatening to leave. In Kenya Kwanza, you saw when there was a failure to ensure proper consensus between Waiguru and Ngirishi. Ngirishi had to leave. Initially, she went to independent, then later she joined Jubilee, because she foresaw a situation whereby already she can know in many of these parties, aspirants just look at the body language of the party leader. And when the party leader is speaking, where does he shift his attention? If you see Raila, for example, is shifting, like in Kenya Kwanza, Ngirishi saw Ruto is shifting his attention to Waiguru. She said, in this situation, I don't see
I'm not safe.
I'm not safe, and there will not be a genuine consensus. So I think it is a duty of party officials, and especially the party leaders, to ensure that these consensus are conducted in a fair manner, whereby all the interested aspirants come to the table. They either negotiate and and as you were saying, some people will say, my people are pressurizing me, like in Meru, for example, in other areas, you see, I come from this region. Some people are saying, there's no way a senator can come from this region and a governor from the same region.
Clanism.
Exactly. It happens a lot in Northeastern, for example. And the party has to consider all those things. Also, the issues of loyalty. These parties are also funded by some of these people. And you see the issue of nomination most of the time. Whereas the party has collected nomination fees from the aspirants, sometimes it may not be enough. You have seen issues where the party now has to reduce the nomination fee to encourage members to participate. Now, this issue of nomination is very expensive. Like I saw UDA saying that it will cost them 500 million to conduct the nomination.
They have to hire lots of personnel.
And sometimes the National Elections Board of these parties has to make good use of the aspirants. Maybe in logistical operations during the nominations, maybe one of the prominent aspirants will give vehicles, which will do that. Others will also, some strong aspirants will make sure that their people are clerks during nomination. And sometimes these nominations are not free and fair. At some point, I think IBC was volunteering to participate, to be conducting the nominations. But of course, the same was opposed by these parties. Because no, you can't choose their candidate in nomination, and also at the same time, it will be the same person choosing in the main election. But now these parties, as I conclude, to avoid fallout, they must come up with proper mechanisms of ensuring that at least, even if not all interest, at least most of the interests of the aspirants
are taken care of.
Especially, exactly, they also have to consider the people on the grassroots. Yeah, and then encourage them to look at the issue of delegates.
And that is my question,
yes,
because,
yes.
well, you know, Dr. I might promise, you know, the room is too big. All of us can fit. But Mwananchi will say, you ni yenu tu huko.
Yes.
For us, tutafit wapi? You get this question? So we can have a consensus. And whereas you say that, you know, it's all the political players will come, sit at a boardroom, then agree. When one candidate is missing, two candidates, or, you know, aspirants are missing, then somebody will say that's not consensus, legally speaking.
Exactly.
Legally speaking.
Yes.
Fine. But then now, the space of for Mwananchi to have a voice. I'm told we are running out of time. We have like around 5 minutes, right? Yes.
The space of Mwananchi keeps on shrinking. It's being muzzled. I think under the pretext, for me, under the pretext of expensive nominations and the pretext of taking care of certain interests, why can't we let the people sort these things out?
Yes.
Because it will be easier. Now, for example, my brother here has talked about parties having it too expensive to do the nominations. But you know, this is a 5-year period preparation that parties should do. Parties know we shall have nominations after 5 years. We can't raise funds to do these nominations properly. Instead, we are thinking of shortcuts, consensus, and all these things, denying people the chance to determine who is going to stand from even their own political party.
Yes.
I think it is, for me, it's a travesty in a sense that we keep on taking shortcuts as a people. Importantly, we consider clan. In fact, it's very important. Clan can be maybe an agreement among the people themselves.
Yes.
If we decide we are going to support this individual to represent certain clan interests, let the people decide. Not someone else to say, yes, this clan should be represented, but again, by this particular person.
Yes.
Why don't we let the people make a decision that in our clan we want to be represented?
They must have a voice.
Yes, so that the voice actually is not taken away. But I also agree that delegate system might perhaps be the closest. But again, you know, delegates should be elected. Some parties are as new, you know, as like 5 months old or 6, 7, 8 months old. When shall they do delegates? Say they elect delegates, or delegates again will be handpicked, handpicked by party elite, and again put forth as the people now to elect, to nominate candidates where there are issues. Again, does that really reflect the democratic practice? No, because we know you can influence the delegates more easily than actually you can influence the electorate, the masses voting in a primary. I want to say this, Victor.
Sure.
We have seen less and less objectivity in these boardroom activities of consensus, of trying to seek consensus. You know, when you have a party leader sitting in a consensus meeting, honestly, how would they be objective? How would that process be objective?
Yeah, because
there should be a board selected, whether of judges or whatever, from party membership, to be able to sit down and listen clearly and determine who is objectively who is going to represent if we can broker a serious consensus.
The party leader being in that meeting.
Party leader is also a candidate. You know, the party leader is also a candidate. He says, "Mi nataka huyu ndiye nitafanya naye kazi." Then how honestly will you be fair? In the loyalty issue now becomes really directly his own responsibility. This one is less loyal to me than this one, so he vouches for those that are loyal. Or also calculating not the interest of the people, but calculating the interest of his own votes. His own votes. Like now, why Sakaja, for instance, in Nairobi? Why Sakaja? To face off with another person, Luya, Timu Wanyonyi.
Yes.
Actually, on the front
page we have
those issues for me are beyond. They're beyond the people. People will not reason that way. I don't think people would think that way. But we are making it complex so that perhaps we can sneak and win this election. The zoning issue you mentioned, zoning can't work. It cannot work. I think the ODM was right, or Kenya Kwanza, you know, not Kenya Kwanza, but Azimio la Umoja, you know, they decided, they made a right decision. Because how do you tell people that, for example, in Nyanza, like my brother mentioned, Nyanza is seen as homogeneous from outside, but internally, Nyanza has its own dynamics. Yeah. If you say that this is now a zone for ODM, you will be far from the truth. Where do the affiliate parties go? And again, we have seen the various layers of this process. Yes. Can say, we agreed, all of us, we have one presidential candidate, for instance, from every coalition. We have Raila Amolo Odinga and Azimio la Umoja. Then that one is agreed. Maybe governor, people are agreed. Yes. But then you go down, again, people feel they should be let alone to make their decisions on who is senator, who is their women rep, who is their MP, who is their MCA. Yes. You cannot zone, because again, it's another process of muzzling the public and killing our democracy. We must give the people room to be able to make an impact. Okay. All right. I'm told you're running out of time. In 1 minute, your word of advice to party leaders. You said that the party leader is also a candidate, so they should be wakai kando kidogo. What's your as your final remarks?
My advice to all these parties, and especially the party leaders, who mostly are perceived to be the owners of these parties, but I agree with Dr. Bosire that they are also candidates in these parties, is that parties should have proper structures, and these structures must be functional, because some parties have structures which are not functional. You talk of our National Elections Board, which is there for formality. You talk of National Appeals Board, which is there for formality, because sometimes aspirants know that some decisions have already been made. Yes. And even if I go to the National Appeals Board, nothing will happen. I think Kenya we are developing, we are young in democracy, and we should prove to the people on the ground that their will be reflected
at the ballot.
Right. Issues of political party primaries, and the act is very clear, it is the party members who should participate. So for the parties to ensure that their members feel satisfied and they will not think of joining other political parties, they must give them a voice. Most of these national delegates conferences are conducted for formality. Yes. The resolutions which are passed there are usually decisions which have already been made by the party top organs. Right. So parties must ensure that they allow all the people to participate in the decision-making process. And my advice would be, wherever there are 2 or more aspirants for a particular seat, where clearly consensus is not working, then let them subject those aspirants for nomination. And after that, now the people will choose the person they want, and issues of fallout will be reduced. Absolutely. Yes.
Gentlemen, allow me to stop you at that particular point. I'm under pressure here. I don't want to be zoned from the studio.
Thank you.
All right. Wakili Katisya, who is an advocate of the High Court, quite instrumental here, as well as Dr. Richard Bosire, University of Nairobi, lecturers, political science, brilliant minds in studio. Okay. We've just served you some hot breakfast in terms of consensus. Let's take a break. Much more coming up after this.